My sister told my boyfriend I was the lesser twin and cut the brakes on my bike the morning of our anniversary. But my mom didn't care, because to her, thinness equals value. Fast forward to today. They're crying when they see themselves in the mirror. I was always the ugly twin. Not officially, of course. My parents would never say that out loud. But when my sister Haley and I stood next to each other, people always noticed her first. Haley was born petite, blonde, and bubbly. I was born quiet, broad-shouldered, and baby-faced. When we turned 9, my parents rented out a rooftop restaurant and surprised her with a Tiffany bracelet. I wasn't allowed to attend, and for me, we had pizza at home. And since my mom forgot to buy candles, I ended up just blowing out a match. Or every school morning, my mom would make Haley avocado toast with a little heart carved into it. Mine was usually a Weight Watchers granola bar tossed toward me with a hurry up. The message was clear: thinness equals value. And I didn't have it until puberty happened, because it didn't just hit me like a truck. It rebuilt me completely. By the time I was 17, I'd lost most of the baby fat, grew into my features, and started getting attention I never had before. At first, I thought it was some inside joke that the whole world was in on. I didn't even know how to respond. But suddenly, out of nowhere, a boy asked me out. He didn't laugh. No one had their cameras out. And that's when it clicked. I really did look different. So I said yes. I don't even know how Haley found out about it, but she did. So that same day, I came home to my mom telling me I had to break up with him. When I asked why, she said, "It's making Haley jealous. You have to do what's best." I narrowed my eyes at her, with no intention of ending things with him, but I did try my best to keep it on the DL, because I still wanted us to be a family, to love each other. But this wasn't enough for her. On multiple occasions, Haley stole my phone while I slept, just so she could text him asking if he wanted to spend the night with the better twin. She even tried telling him I cheated. Obviously, her BS never worked, but she never gave up. Then came our 2-month anniversary. I wore this black dress that actually made me feel really pretty, and even our mom said I looked nice. Haley was quiet for the rest of the week. Then she finally broke. I was in the middle of my morning cycle when I realized the brakes weren't working. A large truck began to pass by, and my heart stopped. I genuinely thought I was going to die. And I would have, if not for the field nearby that I managed to direct myself into. I knew immediately that Haley was the one behind this, but I wasn't angry or sad, just scared. I ran home as fast as I could, and I was met with my mom and Haley sitting in the living room. "Haley, you crazy beach, you could have unalived me." Haley just smirked, but I could see a slight shadow of worry on my mom's face. So I continued. "Mom, Haley just cut the brakes on my bike. I could have died." Tears were streaming down my face, but she just sat there, face completely stoic. "Mom, don't you care?" Then she finally spoke. "Leah, get the F out of my home." I stood there for a full minute with my mouth slightly opened. She didn't say anything else, just called my aunt and told her I would be on the way to visit for a long time. At that point, I was too angry to keep crying. I just shoved my main outfits and charger into a plastic bag before storming out into the Uber parked outside. My veins ran cold, but 5 minutes later, I completely forgave my mom, because that's when she called me. "Honey, I'm sorry, but you're safer this way," she was whispering, voice shaking. "Your sister's jealousy has gotten out of hand." Turns out, a week ago when my mom complimented me, my sister cut the brakes on her car. My mom was too scared to go to the police because Haley threatened that if any authority figures got involved, she would commit suicide. Suddenly, it all made sense. I could tell from her tone that she regretted the way she raised Haley too, but I didn't. You see, Haley now believed she was on top of the world, that nothing could knock her down, that I was the lesser half, and I was about to show her just how strong the power of underestimation can truly be. My Aunt Sarah lived about an hour away in a small apartment. She was my mom's younger sister and always seemed to understand that something wasn't right with how my parents treated me. When I arrived at her place with my plastic bag of belongings and tear-stained face, she didn't ask questions. She just hugged me and showed me to her spare room. "You can stay as long as you need," she said, helping me put my stuff away. I nodded, not really sure what to say. I'd never had an adult just help me without conditions before. Aunt Sarah's apartment was the opposite of our pristine family home. It was cozy and cluttered, with mismatched furniture and walls covered in colorful art. The spare room had a twin bed with a patchwork quilt and a small desk by the window that overlooked a community garden. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. That night, I called Thomas and told him everything. He was horrified and wanted to go to the police right away. I explained why we couldn't, at least not yet. Haley's threats weren't empty. She'd always been dramatic and unpredictable. If she thought she was cornered, there's no telling what she might do. "So what's your plan?" Thomas asked. I didn't have one yet, but I knew I needed evidence. Proof that Haley was dangerous, not just to me, but to herself and others. Something my mom couldn't ignore or explain away. The next day, Aunt Sarah helped me enroll at the local elevated school. It was weird being the new girl, especially mid-semester, but it was also kind of freeing. Nobody knew me as the ugly twin or Haley's sister. I was just Leah. I found myself smiling more, raising my hand in class, even making a few acquaintances. Without Haley's shadow looming over me, I discovered parts of myself I never knew existed. I joined the photography club and found I had a good eye for composition. The club advisor even suggested I consider art school after graduation, something I'd never dared to dream about before. Thomas drove out to see me that weekend. We went to a movie and got ice cream after, and for a few hours I almost felt normal. But when he dropped me off at Aunt Sarah's, reality came crashing back. My phone had 3 missed calls from my mom and a text that just said, "Call me, emergency." "It's Haley," she whispered. "She's been going through your room, destroying your things. She says she's going to find out where you're staying. Because I'm afraid of what she'll do if she finds you," my mom said. She's not well, Leah." After we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed trying to process everything. My own twin sister had tried to call me. My mother had chosen to send me away rather than deal with Haley. And now Haley was hunting for me. Aunt Sarah knocked on my door with a cup of hot chocolate. "Everything okay?" she asked, sitting next to me. I shook my head and told her about the call. She listened without interrupting, then said something that changed everything. "You know, I've got an an old friend who's a family therapist. Maybe it's time we get some professional help with this situation. For the first time in forever, I felt like maybe there was a way forward that didn't end in disaster. I wasn't alone anymore. I had Aunt Sarah, I had Thomas, and now maybe we could get Haley the help she needed before someone really got hurt. But first, I needed to protect myself. Because if there's one thing I knew about Haley, it's that she never, ever gave up once she set her mind on something. And right now, her mind was set on me. I decided to start documenting everything. Every text, every call, every weird thing that happened. Aunt Sarah bought me a small notebook, and I wrote down dates, times, and details of everything Haley had done. Starting with the bike incident and working backward through all the sabotage attempts I could remember, the list was longer than I expected. "This is good," Aunt Sarah said when I showed her. "If we need to talk to someone official later, having a record helps." I nodded, but my stomach twisted at the thought of official anything. Haley's threats about hurting herself if authorities got involved kept playing in my head. I couldn't have that on my conscience, no matter how much she'd hurt me. Thomas visited again the following weekend. We went for a walk in the park near Aunt Sarah's apartment, and I told him about my documentation project. The autumn leaves crunched beneath our feet, and the crisp air carried the scent of someone's fireplace nearby. It felt almost normal, like I was just a regular girl spending time with her boyfriend, not hiding from her homicidal twin sister. "Smart," he said, squeezing my hand, "but I'm still worried about you." His brown eyes were soft with concern, and I felt that familiar flutter in my chest. Thomas had been my rock through all of this, never once questioning my story or suggesting I was overreacting. I leaned against his shoulder, drawing strength from his steady presence. I was about to respond when I noticed a familiar car driving slowly past the park entrance. My heart jumped into my throat. It was my mom's silver Lexus, the one with the small dent in the passenger door from when Haley had backed into a fire hydrant last summer. "We need to go," I whispered, pulling Thomas behind a large oak tree. "That's my mom's car." We watched as the car circled around again, this time slower. I couldn't see who was driving, but I knew. Somehow, Haley had found me. The thought made my skin crawl, like spiders were racing up and down my spine. "How did she know where I was?" I hissed, panic rising in my chest. My hands had gone cold, and I could feel my heartbeat in my fingertips. Thomas looked grim. "Your mom might have told her. Or maybe she followed your mom's phone records to find your aunt's address." We waited until the car finally drove away before sprinting back to Aunt Sarah's apartment. My lungs burned from the exertion, or maybe from fear. I told her what happened, and she immediately closed all the blinds and double-checked the locks, the metallic click of each deadbolt both reassuring and terrifying. "I think we need to move up our timeline," she said, pulling out her phone. "I'm calling my therapist friend now." While Aunt Sarah made the call, I texted my mom, "Haley was just here. Did you tell her where I am?" The response came almost immediately. "No, I swear I didn't. Are you okay?" I wasn't sure if I believed her, but before I could respond, another text came through. "Be careful. She took my car keys this morning. I thought she was just going to the mall." Great. So not only had Haley found me, but she had wheels too. I showed the text to Aunt Sarah, who was just hanging up her phone. She frowned, the lines around her mouth deepening with worry. "Dr. Martinez can see us tomorrow afternoon," she said. "All of us, including your mom and Haley." "Haley won't come," I said immediately. "And even if she did, she'd just lie about everything." I pictured Haley's innocent face, the one she'd perfected over years of getting away with things. The wide eyes, the slightly trembling lower lip, the soft voice that could convince anyone she was the victim. Aunt Sarah shrugged. "Maybe. But Dr. Martinez specializes in family trauma and manipulation. She knows when people are lying." I wasn't convinced, but I agreed to go. What choice did I have? Haley knew where I was now. It was only a matter of time before she tried something else. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every car that drove by made me jump. Every creak in the apartment building had me staring wide-eyed at the door. The shadows in the room seemed to shift and move, taking on sinister shapes. I kept imagining Haley standing over my bed, knife in hand, that empty smile on her face. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The blue light illuminated my face in the darkness as I read the message. "Found you, ugly twin. Sleep tight." I showed Aunt Sarah in the morning. She immediately called my mom, who confirmed that Haley had been home all night, at least as far as she knew. But the damage was done. I felt exposed, vulnerable, like Haley was watching me from every shadow, waiting for her moment to strike. Thomas insisted on driving us to the therapist's office the next day. The building was nondescript, a plain brick structure with frosted glass windows that revealed only vague shapes moving inside. Thomas squeezed my hand before I got out of the car. "I'll be right here," he promised. "Just call if you need me." He waited in the car while Aunt Sarah and I went inside. The waiting room was painted a soft blue, with comfortable chairs and gentle instrumental music playing from hidden speakers. To my surprise, my mom was already there, sitting nervously in the waiting room, alone. "Where's Haley?" I asked, keeping my distance. I noticed my mom had positioned herself in the corner, where she could see both the entrance and the hallway leading to the offices. My mom looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes and her usually perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She refused to come, said therapy was for weak people. Dr. Martinez was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. Her office was warm and inviting, with plants on the windowsill and abstract paintings on the walls. She listened carefully as I explained the situation, occasionally glancing at my mom, who stared at her hands the whole time, picking at her cuticles until one started to bleed. "Mrs. Collins," Dr. Martinez said when I finished, "what's your perspective on all this?" My mom started crying, not the quiet, dignified tears I'd seen a few times before, but ugly, racking sobs that made her whole body shake. Her face crumpled, mascara running down her cheeks in black rivulets. "I don't know what happened," she gasped between sobs. "Haley was always such a sweet child, but lately, she's changed. She's angry all the time, secretive. I found a notebook under her mattress with all these plans, ways to hurt Leah, ways to hurt me if I interfered." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What kind of plans?" My mom shook her head, her hands trembling as she accepted a tissue from Dr. Martinez. "Terrible things. Cutting brake lines was just the beginning. She had diagrams, lists of supplies. I don't even want to say what else she was planning." Dr. Martinez leaned forward, her expression serious but compassionate. "Mrs. Mrs. Collins, has Haley ever been evaluated by a mental health professional? No, my mom admitted. My husband always said she was just elevated spirited, that I was overreacting. She twisted the tissue in her hands, shredding it into tiny pieces that fell like snow onto her lap. And where is your husband now? Dr. Martinez asked. Business trip, my mom said quickly. Too quickly. I narrowed my eyes, recognizing the evasion tactic she'd used throughout my childhood, whenever Dad disappeared for days at a time. Mom, I said slowly. Where's Dad really? She wouldn't look at me. He left 3 days ago. Said he couldn't handle the drama anymore. Typical. Dad had always checked out when things got tough, leaving Mom to deal with Haley's outbursts. But this time, he'd physically left too. I wasn't even surprised. He'd been emotionally absent for years, showing up only for family photos and when Haley won awards. Dr. Martinez spent the rest of the session outlining a safety plan. She recommended my mom stay with us at Aunt Sarah's for a few days while we figured out next steps. She also suggested getting a temporary restraining order against Haley, which made my mom start crying again, her shoulders hunching forward as if she were trying to make herself smaller. She's my daughter, she kept saying. I can't do that to my own daughter. She tried to call your other daughter, Aunt Sarah snapped, her patience clearly wearing thin. Twice. In the end, my mom agreed to stay with us but refused the restraining order. Dr. Martinez gave her some resources for inpatient treatment facilities for Haley, but I could tell my mom wasn't ready to take that step either. She clutched the pamphlets like lifelines, but her eyes were distant, unfocused. When we got back to Aunt Sarah's apartment, Thomas was waiting outside, looking worried. His normally relaxed posture was tense, and he kept scanning the parking lot as if expecting trouble. Someone slashed my tires, he said, pointing to his car. All 4 tires were flat, with jagged cuts visible in the rubber. The sight was jarring in the peaceful afternoon sunlight, a violent intrusion into our momentary sense of safety. My mom went pale, her already ashen face turning almost translucent. She followed me here. We hurried inside, locking the door behind us. Thomas called a tow truck for his car while I helped Aunt Sarah set up the pull-out couch for my mom. The whole time, I kept glancing out the windows, expecting to see Haley watching us from behind a tree or from a parked car across the street. That night, I woke up to the sound of my phone ringing. It was 3 a.m., unknown number. The ringtone seemed unnaturally loud in the quiet apartment, and my hand shook as I reached for it. Hello? I whispered, not wanting to wake anyone. You think you're so special now? Haley's voice hissed through the speaker. There was a strange echo, as if she were calling from somewhere with hard surfaces. A bathroom, maybe, or a stairwell. But you're not. You're still the ugly, worthless twin, and now you've turned Mom against me too. Haley, you need help, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. My free hand clutched at my blanket, twisting the fabric between my fingers. Doctor, Martinez can— I don't need help, she screamed, her voice cracking with rage. You're the one who needs help. You and Mom and that stupid boyfriend of yours. You'll all be sorry. She hung up. I sat in the dark, shaking. The silence after her outburst seemed to press against my ears. I forwarded the call record to my documentation folder, then went to check on my mom. She was awake, sitting on the edge of the pull-out couch, her silhouette illuminated by the streetlight filtering through the blinds. I heard, she said quietly. She called me too. What did she say? My mom looked up at me, her face ghostly in the dim light from the window. That she's coming for all of us. The next morning, we found a dead bird on the doorstep. Its neck had been twisted at an unnatural angle, and a note was pinned to its wing with what looked like a safety pin. Family meeting. Tonight, or else. The sight made my stomach lurch. I'd known Haley was disturbed, but this was a new level of disturbing. This was calculated cruelty, designed to terrify us. Aunt Sarah called the police this time, despite my mom's protests. The officer who came took the bird and the note, but didn't seem overly concerned. He was middle-aged with a slight paunch, and he kept checking his watch as if he had somewhere better to be. Family disputes are complicated, he said, writing something in his notebook. Has she made any specific threats? We showed him my documentation and played the recording of Haley's call. He nodded and said they'd send someone to check on Haley, but I could tell he didn't consider this a priority. Just another family drama, not worth the paperwork. After he left, my mom broke down again. This is all my fault, she sobbed, collapsing onto the couch. I always favored Haley, always made excuses for her behavior, and now look what's happened. I wanted to agree with her, to blame her for everything, for years of looking the other way, of praising Haley while ignoring me, but seeing her so broken, I just couldn't. We'll figure this out, I said instead. Thomas arrived an hour later with his repaired car. His normally cheerful face was serious, his jaw set with determination. I've been thinking, he said, maybe we should give Haley what she wants. What do you mean? I asked. A family meeting, but on our terms, not hers. Thomas's plan was simple but risky. We'd agree to meet Haley at the mall, a public place with security cameras and plenty of witnesses. Thomas's older brother Jordan was a security guard, and he agreed to be nearby in plain clothes. We'd also alert mall security to the situation and have the police on standby. My mom called Haley to set it up. We'll be there at 8, she said, her voice surprisingly steady. Just to talk, Haley, that's all. Haley agreed too quickly, which made me nervous, but we didn't have many options. If we didn't show up, who knew what she might do next? We arrived at exactly 8 p.m. The mall was still fairly busy with evening shoppers, which gave me some comfort. We'd chosen a spot near the central fountain, visible from multiple angles and close to security cameras. Thomas and Jordan positioned themselves at a cafe table about 30 feet away, pretending to be just 2 guys hanging out. Aunt Sarah stationed herself in a bookstore across the way, keeping watch through the window. My mom and I sat on a bench, waiting. I was hyper-aware of every person who walked by, scanning each face for any sign of Haley. My palms were sweating, and I kept wiping them on my jeans. Do you think she'll actually show? I whispered to my mom. She nodded grimly. She'll show. Haley never backs down from a challenge. 10 minutes passed, then then 20. The mall would be closing in an hour and still no sign of Haley. Just as I was beginning to think she'd changed her mind, my phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number, bathroom, by the food court. Come alone or mom gets hurt. I showed my mom, whose face drained of color. It's a trap, she whispered. You can't go alone. I knew she was right. Meeting Haley alone in a bathroom was exactly the kind of isolated situation we were trying to avoid. But what choice did I have? I'll tell Thomas, I said, quickly texting him the situation. He responded immediately. Absolutely not. Too dangerous. But I was already standing up. I'm going, I told my mom. But I'm not stupid. Tell Thomas and Jordan to position themselves outside the bathroom. If I'm not out in 5 minutes, they come in. My mom grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in painfully. Leah, please. She's not stable. I know, I said, gently removing her hand. But this needs to end. Today. I walked toward the food court, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Thomas caught my eye from across the mall and shook his head frantically, but I just pointed to the bathroom and held up 5 fingers. 5 minutes. He looked furious but nodded, already moving in that direction with Jordan. The bathroom was at the far end of the food court, in a little hallway that also led to the mall offices. It was quieter here, away from the main shopping areas. I pushed open the door, half expecting Haley to jump out at me immediately, but the bathroom appeared empty at first glance. 4 stalls, all with doors closed, a row of sinks with large mirrors above them, harsh fluorescent lighting that made my already pale face look ghostly. Haley? I called, my voice echoing slightly against the tile walls. I'm here, alone. One of the stall doors slowly swung open. Haley stepped out, and I barely recognized her. Her usually perfect hair was greasy and pulled back in a messy ponytail. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, which had a wild, unfocused quality I'd never seen before. She was wearing the same clothes from days ago, now rumpled and stained. You actually came, she said, sounding genuinely surprised. I didn't think you would. You said you wanted to talk, I replied, keeping my distance. I positioned myself so I was between Haley and the door. If I needed to run, I could. So talk. Haley leaned against the sink, studying me with those strange, feverish eyes. You've ruined everything, she said matter-of-factly. You know that, right? Everything was perfect before you decided to change. I didn't decide to change, Haley. I just grew up. That's what people do. She shook her head violently. Number, you were supposed to stay the same. Stay in your place. The ugly twin. The forgotten one. That was your role. The cruelty of her words stung, even though I'd known for years that's how she saw me. Hearing it stated so baldly was different. That's really messed up, I said quietly. You know that, right? Normal sisters don't think that way. Normal sisters, Haley repeated with a bitter laugh. We were never normal. We were special. I was special. Until you took that away from me. I noticed she kept one hand in her jacket pocket, and my stomach clenched. Did she have a wop on? I needed to keep her talking until my 5 minutes were up and Thomas came to check on me. I didn't take anything from you, Haley. Your specialness wasn't dependent on my being less than. Wasn't it, though? She challenged, taking a step toward me. I instinctively stepped back. Everything was a competition. Everything was about being better, and I was better. Until suddenly I wasn't. That's not healthy, I said, trying to keep my voice calm and reasonable. Dr. Martinez could help you understand. I don't need help, Haley shouted, her voice bouncing off the tile walls. I need things back the way they were. She pulled her hand from her pocket, and my blood froze. She was holding a small kitchen knife, similar to the one she'd used to cut Mom. The fluorescent lights glinted off the blade as she pointed it at me. Haley, don't, I whispered, eyes fixed on the knife. Please, I'm not going to hurt you, she said, her voice suddenly gentle. I just need you to listen, to understand. That's when the bathroom door opened. A middle-aged woman walked in, took one look at the scene, me backed against the wall, Haley holding a knife, and screamed. The knife clattered to the floor as Haley lunged to cover the woman's mouth, and I seized my chance. I shoved past both of them and burst out of the bathroom, screaming for help. Everything happened so fast after that. Thomas and Jordan rushed in, followed by mall security. Haley tried to run but didn't make it far. They tackled her near the food court, cuffing her as she screamed and thrashed. The look she gave me as they led her away was pure hatred, and it broke something inside me. That was my twin, my other half, and she wanted me dead. The next few weeks passed in a blur of police statements, court appearances, and therapy sessions. Haley was eventually diagnosed with several mental health conditions that explained some of her behavior, but not all of it. The doctor said years of being favored and never facing consequences had created a perfect storm when combined with her underlying issues. She was committed to a secure psychiatric facility, where she'd stay until doctors deemed her no longer a threat. My mom visited her every week, always coming back with red-rimmed eyes and a haunted expression. I couldn't bring myself to go. Not yet. Maybe someday, but not now. My mom and I started therapy together, trying to rebuild our relationship from the ground up. It was hard and awkward and sometimes painful, but slowly, we made progress. She apologized for the years of favoritism, for not seeing what was happening with Haley, for not protecting me better. I forgave her mostly. Some wounds take longer to heal than others. Aunt Sarah eventually went back to her apartment, but she called every day to check on us. Thomas and I stayed together, our relationship stronger after everything we'd been through. His parents became like a second family to me, showing me what normal family dynamics could look like. 3 months after Haley's arrest, I finally felt safe enough to move back home with my mom. My dad never came back. He filed for divorce from whatever state he'd run off to. My mom seemed relieved rather than upset, which told me everything I needed to know about their marriage. I started my senior year at a new school, where nobody knew me as the ugly twin or Haley's sister. I was just Leah, a normal girl with normal teenage problems. I joined the photography club, made a few friends, and even started thinking about college applications. Sometimes at night, I still checked all the locks twice. Sometimes I still jumped when I saw someone who looked like Haley from behind. The therapist said that was normal, that trauma doesn't disappear overnight, but each day got a little easier than the last. 6 months after everything went down, I received a letter from Haley. I stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with just 3 sentences. I'm sorry for what I did. I'm getting help now. Maybe someday you can forgive me. I folded the letter carefully and put it in my desk drawer. I wasn't ready to respond yet. Maybe I never would be. Or maybe someday, years from now, when we'd both had time to heal and grow, we could try to build something new. Not the twisted competitive relationship we'd had before, but something healthier, something something real. For now, though, I was focused on my own life, on becoming the person I wanted to be, not defined by being a twin or by what had happened. Just me, just Leah. And for the first time in my life, that felt like enough.